Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and it's going to be a little bit of a monologue today. Happy New Year, everybody. I want to address a few things, starting out with what we're doing here at the Iowa Podcast and the results, and how we're lining up with corporate media, and also the United Healthcare issue is really, really concerning, where people are actually celebrating a murder. We're going to talk about that, and also customer service and how to win 2025 if you're a business person. There's actually a really simple way to do it. I'll share what I'm seeing in the market and what you can do. So first, let's start with media status. According to Gallup, media trust is again at an all-time low. I'm not going to bash the media. I used to write for the Washington Post. I used to be with iHeart, and I believe in media. I believe that there is a way for them to move forward and to be valuable. I hope they are. I hope they're valuable. But for whatever reason, right now, they've decided not to. They've decided to focus on clickbait and rage bait, and they've decided not to do journalism and reporting. Now, there are lots of great journalists out there. I know tons. Really, really great journalists. So keep in mind, there are some really hardworking journalists that are trying to do their best. They're just operating in a system that's not allowing them to operate well, frankly. And it's a big, deep issue to get into, but the bottom line is, a lot of them have focused on clickbait stuff and temporary highs and rage to get clicks, but over the long-term strategy, that results in lower overall viewers because people know you're not trustworthy. They don't get actual news from you. So this is a big concern, and this is one of the reasons the Iowa Podcast and iowapodcast.com exists, to get you Iowa news, because some of the local entities, not all of them, but some of the local entities have been struggling to go regional or national in their content. Some local radio shows are being produced out of Omaha now. And this is a trend that's continuing. KXNO, we had Ross Peterson in here. KXNO is going more regional. Again, nothing wrong with that. I disagree with the direction. That's just the direction they're going. There's nothing completely wrong or immoral or bad about that. That's just the decision they've made. I think it's the wrong decision. But on this show, we're trying to continually bring you more local content. So I don't really ask for anything on this show. I don't ask for you, other than, for you to subscribe. I don't ask you to pay. There's no way you can pay, frankly. You can't pay. It's free. But I'm going to ask you today, I'm going to ask you to spread this show so that we can grow even bigger and larger in 2025. I have my biases just like everybody else does. I have a lot of biases. That's kind of... That's what makes me human. I try really hard. I hope it comes through. I try really, really hard to check those biases at the door. I try really hard to present you information, and then you can make a decision on what you think. I try to bring you politicians. I try to bring you CEOs, local culture makers, people who influence local Iowa culture. And I have, in the back of my mind, I have my opinions on certain things. And one of the things I try really hard to do is to not inject my own biases and opinions in such a way where it's going to influence you. Now, I also don't want to be a robot and interview people like I'm an AI that's completely neutral. I try to put my own opinions in there as long as they don't manipulate you. Hopefully, I'm doing a great job at that. I would love to hear your feedback. You can email me, Justin@iowapodcast.com. I'd love to hear if you think I'm actually doing a good job at that, or if I'm letting my bias come into the show a little bit too much. I would love your opinion on that. I get a lot of people saying, dude, your bias is too much. Well, I might actually evaluate, listen to the show, and make some adjustments, because I want this to be a show that we actually give you reporting and news. And so here's the results. There have been layoffs at the Washington Post this year. In 2024, the New York Times, NPR, iHeart, and Time Magazine, massive layoffs across the board. CNN laid off 100 people earlier this year. It looks like they'll probably be laying off maybe 100 more. Rumor has it. MSNBC is down more than half their election coverage this year than they were last year. And keep in mind, election coverage drives results for these news agencies. And for this year, it actually didn't do that. I think there are rumors, too, that MSNBC Comcast may be offloading MSNBC or trying to sell it. Now, keep in mind, CNN was down by almost half again. This is on top of their ratings already being down. Now, Van Jones, I've had the pleasure to interview Van about this very thing on a different podcast project. Amazing dude, quality individual. And like I said, there are certainly some bad actors. Taylor Lorenz, for example, is probably a name you've heard. I think she was met Washington Post for a little while. She's since lost her job a few times that post some pretty terrible, awful things. So there are some awful, awful journalists out there. But right here in Iowa, there are especially incredible journalists that are working really, really hard. And you may see that one article by that one individual. I'm not speaking of anybody specifically, but you may see that one article or that one individual that really ticks you off and you think it's highly biased. But keep in mind, there are a lot of journalists that are trying to work really hard, but there's some unfair editor pressure that is causing them to not write what they should frankly be writing. And so I really hope we see some healing. I think we're seeing that, right? Where we saw the interview with the LA Times owner about him going more neutral, trying to get more conservative writers. In his opinion, he thinks they're way too left. We see the same thing, Jeff Bezos saying, we're not going to be endorsing a candidate this year. And he got some, of course, initial blowback, which we all knew would go away eventually. So we are seeing people saying, look, we want to have left opinions and right opinions. And we know that both of you aren't going to like these opinions, but they both need to be present. I'm glad we're seeing that. And I hope that trend continues in 2025. And I really hope you continue to support this show by actually sharing it with someone. So like I said earlier, I'm not going to ask for much. But one thing I am going to ask for is that you actually share this show. I don't share shows often, but I do share shows that are changing my life or are a really good resource for me. So I really hope you consider sharing this with someone, posting it on Facebook. We do really well on Facebook, even though we're not very active there. Posting this on Facebook, posting it on X, formerly known as Twitter, posting some maybe clips from Instagram. If you need help with that, email me at justin@iowapodcast.com. If you want a clip to share, we'll give it to you. Seriously, we'll give it to you. So we'll give you something to post. So I ask that you share it. The easiest way is iowapodcast.com. Right at the top is the Iowa Podcast logo. Go ahead and click that. And you'll be able to see all the more recent shows. You'll be able to share a web link, a URL, in any platform. It'll automatically pull a little image card about that episode. And if someone clicks that image card, that image that you post, that URL you post, it'll take them right to that specific show. So I ask that you share it. I ask that you tell people to subscribe. You can subscribe on email or you can subscribe on your favorite podcast player like Apple or Spotify, X. There's some others up there as well. So please do that. Please support us and help us spread this show because we're working very, very hard. It's not just me, by the way. It's also Lisa Fox over at the Iowa Manufacturing Podcast. Peter Jaquist of the Iowa Ag Podcast is back. He took a slight little break. And of course, Kaylee Williams of the Iowa Tech Podcast. I ask that you subscribe to their shows and share them as well. You can find all those shows at iowapodcast.com. So thank you for everybody. It's we're already serving like over 10,000 Iowans per month or something ridiculous like that. So thank you very much. We're beating local media right now, which is great. And like I said, it's great to have a frenemy and to beat them at something. I don't want to see them go away. That would be really, really bad. That would be bad for all of us. So I hope that they learn the lessons of declining ratings. And I mean, Ross Peterson was just laid off from KXNO, despite the fact that his show was great. Keith Murphy was in here talking about how they ended their show. They walked. They didn't renew their contract. I don't think there was bad blood or anything, but they didn't want to renew their show. This is, of course, Max and Amy's show was gone. There are a lot of shows that have ended just at iHeart alone. So it's a rough time. And I will say the local show, just a really quick note before I move on to the United Healthcare murderer, there is, these local shows actually have done well. You may look at, well, they're not going to lay off a high performer over at iHeart, but they do. They absolutely do, because there's some really old school leadership over at iHeart that doesn't understand digital. And just a really quick note, when I was there with Adrienne Branstad doing that morning show, there was a morning show we did for a little while on Saturdays. We had more web visits and web impressions than most of the stations in Iowa combined. We had more than Simon Conway by 30%, and we beat Jeff Angelo and at the time Van and Bonnie and all the other day shows combined. All those shows combined, we did better. We had to, because we're Saturday mornings, man. No one listens on a Saturday morning, or at least that's what we were told. So we had to compete digitally. It didn't take that long for us to do that. And so a lot of the local leadership, some of the executives just don't understand digital. You'd think they would. They're iHeart, but they just don't. I mean, that's probably why their stock price isn't doing so well. Moving on, though. So, to put an end cap, finally land this plane, please subscribe. Please tell your friends to subscribe. Please spread the message of the Iowa Podcast and, of course, our other shows at iowapodcast.com. But moving on, one of the things that I'm really concerned about is the United Healthcare murderer being openly celebrated. And, of course, that's on its face disgusting. And if you're one of those individuals, I pray that you go see your priest, your pastor, whoever, and beg for forgiveness and ask them for help and guidance, and maybe say a prayer and ask God for guidance, because I'm just going to tell you, I don't know who you are listening to this right now or if you disagree, but you got to examine your heart. That's a really, really dangerous thing in your head. But that being said, it's disgusting on its face. But that being said, it does reveal something to me about healthcare and our understanding of how it works. And what I mean by that is not many of you understand how it works. Now, I'm not going to be the one to claim I'm a healthcare expert, but I have had a bunch of clients in medicine tech and technology, where I know a little bit about how broken the system is. I can't tell you about the projects. I can't tell you about the clients. Because I didn't get permission from them. That would be rude if I was airing your dirty laundry or airing your stuff on this show. But what I can tell you is one client, I'm going to give you a few stories, because it's not just insurance. I know insurance is easy to pick on because everyone, it's an easy target. It's in the news all the time, and we tend to think insurance people are the bad guys. But let me shed some light on this. There are multiple layers to this. There's insurance. I'm not saying they're innocent, but there's insurance. They have some problems, of course. But there's also the technology companies, and there's also regulations and politicians that are making things a lot worse. All of them, there's a big, big system that's broken. It's not just health insurance. Yes, they need to fix some things, but to point the finger at them is stupid, because it's not just them. Insurance, let's go back to how insurance actually works. We would never apply the same standard to a car company, but for some reason we're applying this evil standard to health insurance companies. Health insurance companies, the way insurance is supposed to work, but truthfully it doesn't work that way. At least health insurance doesn't work that way in this country anymore. But it's supposed to be you pay a set amount, and if you pay that set amount, you're insured based on the terms. Now, the accusations against health insurance companies is that they deny too many claims. Which could very well be. Like I said, I'm not an expert in that. But they have a limited pool of money to utilize. Now, that being said, could they utilize the money better? Are the salaries too high? Fair arguments, great discussion, and absolutely you should have the discussion. But one insurer in a state that will go undisclosed informed me that, and this was a couple of years ago, that 20% of their entire revenue went to one child to keep them alive. 20% of all the money they were bringing in from people paying premiums like you and me went to one child. So they have been put in a position where the money coming in to pay premiums, they have to insure people, and they do have to decline some things. Now, I'm not going to be the first person to say what should or should not be declined, but there are a lot of layers to this. Let me give you some examples, because I know some of you who are really angry about this are shouting, no, it's the insurance companies, they're evil. I have a client who made a really, really incredible life-saving technology for low cost. And I went into their office and I said, hey, this new version is way better, way thinner, way faster. So cool. Why don't you just push this out to production? It's amazing. And the CEO told me, Justin, we'd love to. We just don't have $2.5, maybe $3-4 million to refile through the FDA. And so I asked, why would you need $2.5 million or $3 million to file through the FDA? That makes no sense. And he's like, yeah, we agree it makes no sense, but these are the requirements. These are the regulations. In order to go through the FDA's hoops and go through the process the way they want us to, it's going to cost us about $2.5 million to $3 million, maybe more. So what you need to understand is that there are a lot of organizations that are trying to solve some of these healthcare issues, but are not legally allowed to. This is a big problem. I'll give you another example. One of my other clients had made a medical device and wanted to give it away for free, which is a crazy idea. It's a lower cost medical device, and they wanted to give it away for free. And they wanted to give it away for free, and then they wanted other people to be covered by insurance. And they tried to do this and were told that was illegal, that in order to, and I don't remember the details on this, but they weren't able to actually give a device away at low cost and have insurance to cover it. They needed to actually increase their prices to hit a certain insurance category, and this was a regulation. And so they were forced to actually increase prices to get it covered by health insurance. Keep in mind, they're forced to increase prices to get it covered by health insurance to fit regulations. Now, there are probably some people out there that are experts in this area that are noticing I'm getting tiny little details wrong. Like, well, technically, Justin, that's a regulation enforced through. Like I said, I'm not an expert, but I'm telling you the stories I've heard because I work in a professional capacity in some of these industries. Let me give you another example. Another company that is in medical device manufacturing told me about plastic acquisition, like getting materials in plastics. And I asked, what's the difference between this plastic you're using and this other plastic? Like it looks like it's the same stuff. And he told me, absolutely, it's the same exact plastic. It's like, then why is this company, again, not the medical company, why is the plastic company marking up the medical grade version so much if it's the same thing? He's like, Justin, they have to because of lawsuits. If even though they're just a plastic company, if that plastic is used in a device down the road and someone sues because the device broke, that lawyer is going to sue everyone down the chain. They're going to sue the plastic manufacturer, the resin manufacturer. They're going to sue the circuit board manufacturer. They're going to sue the doctor. They're going to sue the hospital. They're going to sue everybody. And so they have to mark up those prices because they're planning to be sued. And so now you could even point the finger at legal, right? You could point the finger at legal. You could point the finger at health insurance. You could point the finger at med tech. You could point the finger at the FDA. The list is long who we could point the fingers at. So are we going to just go into an all-out civil war in this country? The answer is no. And so what I want you all to understand is that the issue is bad. Health costs in this country, health costs in this country are too high. They don't need to be high. There are innovators out there that are trying to bring them down, but there is a large system, and it's not just insurers, but it's also politicians that are causing this problem and making it more complex than it needs to be. I did talk to Representative John Delaney. I've talked to Republicans and Democrats on this issue. It's not a left-right thing. I know you want to make it a left-right thing depending on who you voted for, but it's not. There are politicians on both sides that are part of this problem. I talked to Representative John Delaney, Democrat from Maryland, when I was at my time at iHeart, and I brought this issue up to him, and he's like, yeah, absolutely. This is a huge problem. We need to cut red tape, especially for innovators that are bringing solutions to the market. But sadly, some larger organizations, I don't have names, but some larger organizations are choosing to use their legal departments, a term regulatory capture, and lobbyists to increase the barriers of entry so that smaller innovators can't gain access to the market and bring the costs down. So is a libertarian complete free market on healthcare, would that bring costs down? Yes. Should we just completely abolish the FDA? No. Just my own personal opinion, probably not. Maybe someone could give me a really convincing argument to abolish the FDA. But again, I'm not an expert in those areas. But when people apply the idea of like, well, the free market's not working for healthcare, absolutely it's not working for healthcare because it's not allowed to work. It's been regulated to a point where the free market can't work. Should we just have a complete free-for-all in medical? I'm not arguing for that. Should we have complete government control top down and more rules and regulations to control things? I'm not advocating for that either. But the point being, everybody, is that we can't blame the insurance companies. They're part of the problem. That's a great argument we should have, but there are so many layers to this. And so I ask that you get educated and get informed on this and don't simply point fingers. And of course, it really, I can't believe we need to say this, but violence is not an answer in this. If someone's trying to violently harm you or your family, violence may be your only choice to defend yourself and your family. So violence sometimes might have to be the answer, but violence is never a default answer. That I can't believe we have to say this. I can't believe people actually, celebrate this psycho killer that decided to shoot someone in the back. I can't believe we're at a spot where we have to talk about this, but here we are. So I thought it would be helpful that the healthcare issue, the cost of healthcare is very, very complicated. And truthfully, we need more people looking into it and voicing concerns and discussing these things. So do your research. I will say be careful researching with AI tools. They can mislead you. It's not no conspiracy here. The AI makes major mistakes a lot. Do your own research. Follow sources. Don't just read headlines. Last thing, 2025. I'm going to end on a positive note. Customer service is bad, everybody. And this is great news if you're a business owner. Great news if you're a business owner. I've been traveling a lot this year, overseas, domestically hit a bunch of different states, restaurants, airlines, hotels. I've been traveling a lot, and customer service across the board, customer service on phone, email support, chat support is absolutely terrible. It's absolutely terrible. It's almost as if people don't want to deal with you at all. You're coming into an establishment. And again, this show's not to tear anybody down, so I'm not naming names. But it's almost as if when you go into an establishment these days, people are offended at the idea that you dare darken their door and come in and pay them money and give them business. I just had to, 3 times? I tried to get reservations somewhere 3 times. I don't remember where this was. Oh yeah, it was a different city. I called once I went online to try to book reservations, and they wanted a credit card down payment. I'm like, I'm not doing, that's insane. I'm not giving you a credit. I've not even been there yet. I'm not giving you a credit card. That's crazy. So abandoned that idea, decided to call them. This is, kind of call them, use the phone, dial the number. And so I did. And what happened? Well, I got an AI thing that greeted me, took all my information, and at the very end said, your reservation's not confirmed. I'm going to have one of my human counterparts or human friends or whatever it said, call you to confirm your reservation. So I was like, wow, this is really stupid. Great. And so they eventually did call. It took a little while. And went through the same questions. Started going through the same questions. There was no excitement that I wanted to come to the restaurant whatsoever. They started going through the same questions, asking me the same stuff. And at the end said, can you confirm the phone number? And I'm like, you mean the number you just called me on? And I went. It was actually delightful. But I'm just thinking, do you want people to come here? Like, why have you set it? It ended up taking 3 attempts just to get a reservation at this place. And so I was wondering, why has it been so difficult to work with you? I just want to come there to your restaurant and pay you money, but you have made it very, very difficult to do that. And this isn't just that restaurant. This is a pattern. I'm seeing employees that don't care. I'm seeing leaders that are checked out. And I'm seeing people who have made it very, very difficult just to pay them money. And these are the same people, I'm sure, that are complaining about how bad the economy is and how we just can't get anybody to come into our store or come into our restaurant. And so here's the big chunk of advice is that you have, as a business owner, a major, major advantage in 2025, a huge advantage, because everyone's service, all your competitors' service, is probably a dumpster fire. All your competitors' customer service attempts are probably terrible. So as a business owner, this gives you a huge opportunity to move in on their market share. So people like me want good service. Like, where did that go? I feel like COVID just completely destroyed great customer experience and great customer service. So if you're a business wondering how to get ahead, show some empathy, care for people, keep track of things. Like I've noticed at hotels, one of the huge issues is simple requests people forget all the time. If you're a business owner, if you're a restaurant, find out some communication method that works for your organization and employees. Find out a way that balls aren't dropped. New Year's, no pun intended. One simple strategy for this is just put a scrum board, like a big whiteboard, or heck, do a chalkboard in your back office somewhere. When tasks need to be done or projects need to be done, put them in the backlog column. You can have several columns: backlog, active, delayed, completed. And then just put it on a sticky note, put it in the backlog column, and have people moving over things into each column when they're completed or stuck or in progress. This will give everyone a quick visual on what needs to get done. Communication and great service, if you focus on those two things in 2025, I think you're going to have a pretty good year, because most your competitors are just, they're just drooling on them. They're drooling all over themselves. It's so bad. It is so bad. I'm sure you've seen this too. I'd love to hear from you on X, or just go to iowapodcast.com and fill in the form. If you've seen some terrible service, I would love to hear from you. But it's not good. It's not good. And if you're the one who focuses on service this year, 2025 is going to be your year. You're going to crush it. Everybody, thanks so much for listening to the Iowa Podcast. Like I said at the beginning of the show, make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast player. Really easy to find all of them. Go to iowapodcast.com, click on the Iowa Podcast at the top, and make sure to subscribe on your favorite player. And thank you so much for listening to the Iowa Podcast. Let's make 2025 really, really great. And if you could send me like everyone in your extended family and all your friends and tell them all to subscribe, that would make my year, and us as a community, that'd make a really good year. Everyone, thanks for listening. And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.